Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Here's a chance. Leach hit the crossbar. 2 Canucks are away. 3 of them. The Preds score. The Vancouver Canucks hear the puck off their crossbar behind McLean. Go the other way, and they win this first game 3-2 in overtime.
May 31st, 1994, Greg Adams, overtime winner, his second straight overtime winner in those 1994 Stanley Cup playoffs, called perfectly by the late, great Bob Cole. We're going to hear more about Bob from our guest, John Shannon, in a matter of seconds. But again, a reminder that all of our guests today on this Friday, brought to you by our friends at the Whistler Golf Club, Al Christmanson and Company, opening day, May the 10th, as we bring in NHL analyst, co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, John Shannon. John, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm well, boys. Happy Friday.
I asked, how are you? And I'm keeping in mind that you lost a friend yesterday. Just your reaction to the passing of Bob Cole.
Well, it's interesting, Donnie. There's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, I knew the man for 47 years. Mm-hmm. Knew his family. Half of them live in Vancouver, and the other half are still on the Rock. And it was a tough day yesterday. But what really was refreshing, revealing, was the reaction of our country yesterday. Mm-hmm. To how everybody appreciated what Bob Cole did for them for such a long period of time, and did it with such passion and such glee. And that really, maybe more than the sadness of the day, was upbeat. That he was a great man, he was a great broadcaster, and obviously was greatly appreciated.
You touched on it there, but what made the passion, for one thing, but what made him so good, John?
Simplicity, more than anything else. There weren't big words. Compared to other broadcasters that we deal with these days, there weren't as many words. He understood the moment. No one had a better sense, Donnie, of anticipation of what was going to happen. If he said, "Watch out," or "Here they come," you better pay attention. You better watch the television, because something special is going to happen, and that's what Bob was telling you.
You touched on this as well, and for one thing, just reminded, looking at his bio yesterday, he was a pretty good athlete in his day in Newfoundland, yep. A curler, a baseball player. What was he like away from the broadcast booth, John?
Humble, never wanted the attention on himself. He was competitive. You did not want to be on the opposite golf team from Bob Cole, because he would be mad at you. Really a family man in so many ways. He had 4 children: Kristen, Hillary, Megan, and Robbie. Megan still lives in Vancouver, and he was the type of guy that could prioritize pretty well about when it was a time to be home. And that was one of the reasons why, for all those years, in traveling to do Saturdays across the country or across the continent, he still lived in St. John's. He was a Newfoundlander through and through, and that was important to him as well. So there are so many stories, and every hour you talk about him, there's 6 more that come up. It comes up. For instance, in the 1980s, he loved the show Dallas, loved it to the point where it was an obsession. You could not talk to Bob at 10 o'clock on Friday night, even if you had the most important thing about the show the next day. You could not talk to Bob because Dallas was on. And by God, do not tell him who shot JR. That was Bob. And he was a wonderful person. He truly was. And he was the real deal when it came to how to broadcast a hockey game.
John, his chemistry with Harry Neale for me was unbelievable, and those two made such a great tandem. How did that come together?
Well, once Harry was fired in Detroit, we started to offer Harry work at hockey night. And then what happened was it was pretty obvious that Harry, who had decided to move back to Buffalo, was going to end up doing the Maple Leafs. And most Saturday nights by then, Bob was doing the national game, which in many worlds was the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they created that Saturday chemistry, and it was one where both of them, probably because of the age they were at, respected the other's position. Bob was never a coach or never an NHL player, so he understood that Harry came with talent, and then Harry allowed Bob to be Bob. There wasn't a lot of interjections as the play went up and down the ice with Harry stepping on Bob's toes. Right. So the moment they created that chemistry was, Bob, you do this and I'll do that. It became something that really, really grew over a 15-year period, and a great friendship for that period of time as well, until Harry went to do the Buffalo Sabres. But it was certainly special, and there is there's an ebb and a push and pull, because Bob was so serious. Bob was meticulous. Harry was having fun. And so they really did fit like hand and glove in so many ways.
Harry Neale's old team, John, right now in round one against Nashville, what are your thoughts on the first two games, and what's going to happen moving over to Nashville tonight?
Well, first of all, we know it's going to be a circus in Nashville.
Yep.
We're going to, how many catfish do you think are going to be on the ice before the game starts?
A ton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, the NHL's promo where the guy sneaks the catfish, that's not going to help.
Here's an idea.
The Canucks, I still think, are in the driver's seat. They have too much talent not to be in the driver's seat. Casey DeSmith can stop the puck well enough for this team to win games. Elias Pettersson needs to be better. Sure, he does. But the talent that's on this team, the grit that is on this team, when you look at guys like Bluger and Joshua and Garland, this team, if it plays the way it did for most of the season, and as consistently as it did for most of the season, this is still a Vancouver Canucks series to win.
John, you've spent much of the year covering the Oilers, tied at one after two games. Game 3 tonight in Los Angeles. These two teams, and this is somewhat unexpected, they've combined for 20 goals in the two games. Oilers have given up 9. How much heat, and the history, recent history with goaltending at Edmonton, how much heat is Stuart Skinner receiving?
It's interesting. A year ago, I would have said a lot. I would have said, boy, he's under the gun. But something changed at Edmonton this year, and that was the arrival of Chris Knoblauch. And people in the Kootenays would know about this because Chris was there for a couple of years with the Ice. But this guy doesn't have a pulse. There's no panic. There is, and you can even see it in the way the players talk this morning at the skate. They are resilient, but there's not 1 ounce of panic in anybody because Chris doesn't panic, or at least he creates the perception of not panicking. He's straight. He's probably got it up to 25 beats a minute now, which is pretty good. But that's really one of the reasons, and that's one of the reasons why this club succeeded under Knoblauch, was that there was not an ounce of indecision. And there was not an ounce of panic in anything that Chris Knoblauch has ever done since he took over as the coach of the Oilers.
Okay, back to television for a second, switching gears. The NHL has this new 2-year deal with Amazon. John, quickly, if you don't mind. Prime Video will now be the home of Monday night national games in Canada. Good thing, bad thing?
Well, inevitable. And if you're a Prime subscriber like I am, it's fine, right? Of course, I mean the UPS guys at my house every day from Prime. I mean it's crazy. The delivery guys here every day. We're on a first name basis. So from that perspective, I'm not sure we will notice a difference. It's just where you get it from, a TV channel or an app. That's really what's going to happen. And when we saw the NFL do it in the United States with Amazon, and they did it with Peacock, this is the first venture this way in Canada. And I think rather than saying good or bad, I think the answer should be just get used to it, because it's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger as things roll on. And it's a 2-year experiment, in my opinion, for Amazon to figure whether that this is a place that they can grow their business in Canada as they compete with other online companies like President's Choice, and Walmart. And that's really where the story is on the other side of the business line, is how do they create awareness for their products online? Because right now they're losing a battle against those two giants.
Okay, and next week, John, we'll have you explain to Rick how to access Prime Video. That'll take about 8 or 9 minutes.
Not going to happen.
Do the research and get back to us.
Not going to happen, John. I'm not doing it. I want to sit on my couch and I want to flick one button. That's it.
Tell you what, I think it's great, Donnie, that you've changed your co-hosts from Rick Dollawall to Clint Eastwood. Get off.
I love Clint.
John, John, as we leave the interview, God bless Bob Cole and his family. Thanks so much for this.
He was a great man, and there will be nobody like him ever again, because the place is going crazy.
Agreed. John, thanks so much. Talk to you next week.
Cheers, boys.
John Shannon, and by the way, there's a special Bob Cole edition of the Bob McCowan podcast that John and Bob are going to. I don't know if it's already been done, Ryan, but it will be available at the very least later today. We want to go to break with this. By the way, we're going to update the poll question. And I know, and I said this earlier. I've gone way too far, when it comes to researching Bob Cole clips. I spent all night. I tweeted about it yesterday. I spent all night looking at Bob Cole clips. He was just so good. But you don't normally associate him with the Canucks. But I wanted to run a montage here of this. Bob Cole on the call, April 9th, 1989, Canucks in a first-round playoff series with the Calgary Flames. It's the one they lost Game 7 in overtime, the controversial Joel Otto goal. They won on this particular night. It was Game 4. They ended up tying the series, the Canucks did, 2-2. They won that game 5-3. Rookie Trevor Linden was on fire with 4 points, 1 goal and 3 assists. And this montage has names like Bridgman, Nordmark, and Reinhardt, and I just absolutely loved it. But let's go to break as we get ready to update the poll question with Bob Cole, April 9th, 1989 at the Coliseum.
Reinhardt upended at the blue line, and the Flames get it down. 2 of them coming over the line. Otto dropped it back. Canucks pick it up and sweep out of there. Adams straight to the line with Bridgman. Dropped it back to Linden going in. He set it up. Linden stopped at the line. Tandy dropped it back to him now. Linden trying to get loose. He gets control. Now back to Nordmark. To Linden going in. He scores! Linden! Ready. Nordmark passes it ahead to Adams. Adams back to the line. Reinhardt picked the shot. Now Reinhardt scores! Linden on the faceoff. Gets it back. Nordmark now at the line. The shot. Scores! That should
Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by AbleAuctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.